day 2 of the festival. And again, another fantastic race to start off the meeting, the Ballymore Novices Hurdle. If you look at the horses near the top of the market, Gaillard de Menil, Bob Ollinger, and Brave Man's Game, again, trainers confident about their horses. How do you see this one setting things off on day 2, Barry?
I've been looking at this race all the build up through the season and thinking it's weak. Brave Man's Game was good in Newbury, but I'm not sure it's strong enough either. Bob Ollinger won well in Naas, but I thought Blue Lord was the horse for me to take out of the race because he ran so keen. But Willie is adamant he's going to go for the 2 mile, I believe. So if Blue Lord lined up in this race, if there happened to be a late change of mind, I think he'd be a big play here, and he's a fancy price too. He's 20 to 1 or thereabouts. So I would love Blue Lord here. But Gaillard de Menil, who I thought was very workmanlike in Leopardstown over 2.6 on soft, the heavy ground. He travelled really nice through the race, but Jack had to hurry him along, or not Jack, Paul Townend had to hurry him along in the straight to challenge and to win. Now, he won well at the line, and I was thinking he was more of an Albert Bartlett horse, but Willie, although he left appreciated in the Ballymore, although he intends running them in the Supreme, he took Gaillard de Menil out of the Albert Bartlett. So he's fully committed to this race. And I just looked at his action and thought maybe this horse is a horse that would be better on nicer ground. He travelled like a horse with plenty of pace, but just maybe he found it harder work on the ground. So I think he's the one. Bob Ollinger, as I say, I think if Blue Lord lined up here, he'd beat him. So for me, I'd go Gaillard de Menil. I'd love to see Blue Lord line up though.
All right. I like that thought process. Neil, any insight into Brave Man's Game? Because I've been hearing, again, Paul Nicholls saying things like the lad who rides Brave Man's Game at home also rides Surname and Master Tommy Tuck and something else, and basically said this is by far the best of them. Whether that, in the context of this season, means as much as it normally does, what do you reckon?
Well, he seemed, on that thing I was listening to this morning, he seemed to be kind of saying that, people kind of picked up on him comparing the horse to Denman and got a little bit carried away. He was just kind of really trying to say it's just gone the same route as Denman. But, you know, I mean, it's obviously a brilliantly promising horse and it's early in its career. That was the thing I was thinking about, was what I tried to say earlier, where, you know, the kind of dichotomy that the Supreme, you tend to think you need, because it's 2 mile race, you think, well, I need a speed horse, and this being 2 mile 4, you think I need more of a stayer. That guy who had the stats was quite good. He said since 97, grade 1 2 mile winners in the Ballymore, 8 from 16. So 16 runners, 8 winners at the Ballymore. Whereas horses that had won over a grade 1 over 2 miles 4 going into the Ballymore have only won 2 out of 19 runners. So I thought that was quite interesting. You know, maybe although you think, well, it's a longer race, we need more of a staying type. Actually, you need a speed horse. I don't know, why is that, Barry? Is it the way the race runs? Or?
I think, yeah, because you're taking on stairs, it's probably not run like the Supreme is end-to-end gallop. So you need a horse with a cruising speed, but you need a horse who stays. So if you say Champagne Fever was that type of horse, obviously a speed horse can be found out in Cheltenham because he mightn't get home. But the Ballymore, if I look back to I won on Simon Sig, and Mickey was adamant to go for the Supreme because he'd so much pace, and I begged him not to because I said his jumping might just be caught out, but you could ride him like the class horse. So he cantered around in the Ballymore, and you rode him for all the speed in the world. Nothing could quicken with you. So you have a horse with speed taking on real stayers who lack that kick. So they're, a good horse then stands out. So I would agree with you. He'll be going on in 3rd gear, the 2 mile grade 1 winner, whereas the rest will be 4th and heading to 5th.
Nice. All right. Chief, have you got any views here?
Well, I've actually got a horse entered in this race, 20% of a horse called Captain Morgs. Very unlikely runner, runs in the 3rd favourite for the grade 3 at Sandown on Saturday. Horse obviously named after our England cricket captain, Owen Morgan, who's part of the horse as well, actually. But let's see what happens on Saturday. But I doubt we could go Saturday and then to the Ballymore. But we're I think best price 80s. but generally 50s. But on this race, I mean, the way the guys are talking about it, this is just another lovely race for us. Hopefully, bookmakers just lay the top of the market and hope something bit bigger comes out and does the job for us.
All right. I don't think the next race is going to be perhaps as fruitful for you if you're taking on the favourite, but that's my thought, because it is the old RSA, it's the Brown Advisory Novices Chase, and I'm pretty certain one of the good things is lining up here. What is the market saying about Monkfish?
Monkfish is best price 8 to 11. We are 4 to 6, so not really taking him on at the moment. It looks like a sort of one horse race, but hopefully Neil will dispel that one horse race theory, because there are none at Cheltenham.
Go on then, Neil, dispel it.
I sort of tend to think that people talk a lot down there about bookmakers doing lots of Cheltenham offers, and you've got to wait for the day because they'll go crazy, and there's no point betting the short ones because they'll all be boosted. And I don't really see that with Monkfish. I think it's the second race of the day. It's day 2. If bookmakers are going to do lots of crazy offers, I don't think they're going to go even money Monkfish, because they don't really need to do it on this race. And I think it might be a bit of a weak field against it. Obviously, the horse is just hugely impressive, brilliant jumper, just really good fun to watch. I think it could go off even shorter still. And to be honest with you, I haven't really got one against it. I've struggled a bit to find one. I'm sure it won't be a no-bet race on the day, because I don't really have no-bet Cheltenham races. But at the moment, I haven't really got one against it.
There is no such thing as a no-bet race at the Cheltenham Festival. That's from years of experience. Apart from you, Barry, of course, for all those years that you were riding. But this year, Barry, if you were a punter, would there be any point in opposing Monkfish?
I don't think so. I think if you took Monkfish out of the race, it probably wouldn't be the strongest renewal. And he is the real deal. He dropped back to 2.5 the last day and he bolted up. I thought he was possibly vulnerable at 2.5. Hacked up. Paul Townend was interviewed after the race as he pulled up. The horse wasn't even blown. He'd have gone round again. So I think he is an exceptional horse, and he's for me, he's home and hosed. Where the value is, as I said, it's not a very strong race. I thought Sporting John did well to win last time in Sandown. He obviously disappointed last year at the festival. Some of Phillips did that. But he is a very good horse. He looked to jump really well. Sandown's a good test for a novice, and he came through that well. He was beaten first time in extra when probably disappointing as well. So on a Sandown run, stepping up and trip, with a horse but still with a lot of potential, I think he's one for the place market, but there's no opposition to Monkfish if he only wins.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. I think Monkfish is exceptional. I mean, if he was running in the Gold Cup, I'd give him a squeaker. He's that good, it seems. The big breakaway, I hope, will run into a place. He's obviously got a lot of talent, but it's not been the easiest season, as we all know, for the Tizzards, but hopefully he'll run well. The next race, I'm just going to leave this to the experts, because the Coral Cup, it looks almost impossible. It's not obviously, again, it's not going to be a no-bet race. I will have a bet in it. But Neil, I'll let you kick off.
On the stats, I think you don't want to go too high up the weights. I think generally 11 stone and under, that doesn't usually knock out too many, but I might look a little bit further down. I don't know. I mean, I wrote down a whole bunch of potentials. I thought Birchdale was quite interesting for Nicky Henderson. It was 8th last year in the race, and it's carrying £2 less than last year now. I sort of feel like Henderson's horses, they had a little bit of not a brilliant time a couple of weeks ago, but they're having winners still. Obviously, he gears everything up for the festival. And, he has a stable full of horses that want better ground. I do sort of tend to think that in the handicaps, sometimes, some of the English trainers, and particularly Paul Nicholls, I think, their horses are trained a bit too honestly. They run a lot during the winter and they don't fiddle about switching from fences back to hurdles a lot. that kind of thing. And that can perhaps cost them at Cheltenham. And I think sometimes for certain kinds of horses, that can cost Nicky Henderson in the handicaps. But no, I think this one I don't mind. And that might be the one for me.
All right. Barry, the Coral Cup. Good luck.
Yeah. Birchdale, I would agree with Neil slightly on Birchdale, but Birchdale has promised and promised and promised, and he's still promising. If he was ever to produce what his potential shows at home, and I was slightly torn between him and Dame the Company last year, and I came down on Dame the Company because she had so much experience. And that was obviously the negative against him. He's been running over fences since then. So his last experience of a handicap hurdle was this race last year. And he ran okay. So he has a squeak, and he's probably worth a few quid each way. But I like the favourite, Gran Roy. I've seen him at home. He looks really well. He's been working well. He was second last time in Bacchusson. Beacon's Edge was third. I think stepping up on trip on better ground is going to suit him. Nicky had him before he was sold, and he would have loved to have kept him. So he rated him highly. So for me, I think Gran Roy, he has more weight than ideal, but it's a funny race, this. And as I said, I won it last year with Dame the Company. I won it before with Sky's the Limit. I think he'd 11-1 or something. They can often not go that quick. And they didn't go that quick last year. And in that instance, I think having 11-6 or something like that wouldn't be as much of a burden. They tend to go flat to the board of the county hurdle. And it's a bit like the Supreme versus the Ballymore. In the race over 2.5, for some strange reason, maybe it's just the years I've won it, they haven't gone as quick. So I'd be happy with Gran Roy. And Birchdale is of interest each way, but as I said, there's a lot of promise.
Okay.
Chief, I forgot.
Sorry,
I had another one I meant to say. When I started talking about Paul Nicholls, I knew there was a reason. There's always a reason. It's just because he's got one that is a bit different to his kind of normal MO, in that it's come back to hurdles from chasing. And so possibly it might be a little bit more disguised, shall we say, than some of his runners in the handicaps. And that's Saint Sonnet. It's quite a big price, I think.
Last year before the festival, he won up at Catterick over fences, and then he went for the Marsh, didn't he? And then he was quite well fancied a couple of times this season. It just hasn't worked out.
It's basically run really poorly this year on really awful ground, and it just wants spring ground. I don't actually know whether it's a certainty to run in this race, but I just thought this might be the race for it. It's off 143 now, and it definitely hasn't really had its opportunity to show its best this winter. But if it runs, I think that's definitely a spring ground horse.
Okay. Good distraction, though, briefly.
Sorry about that.
Chief, the big one on the Wednesday, of course, is the Queen Mother Champion Chase. A race that Barry Geraghty, I think, has won 5 times. Am I right, Barry?
Yeah. It was a lucky race for me.
It was, indeed. You rode some super horses in that. Chief, what's the story in this?
Well, we've got another short price favourite. This is my favourite race of the festival. Nearly backed all of Barry's winners, actually. Probably have backed them all, and some of them twice. Moscow Flyer, I'd say just pips it for me, but Barry may say something else there. So here we are. This is another Richie short one, isn't it? Chacun pour soi is even money. He's as short as 4 to 5, some bookmakers. We're even money, which is biggest out there at the moment. Altior 13 to 2 with us. And then take your pick on the rest, I'd say. But
right, Barry, given your record in this race, I'm going to let you start here. Who would you ride, because this is going to win this year?
Chacun pour soi. It's fairly simple. He is head and shoulders above the field. Altior, obviously a brilliant horse in his day, but he is on the slide. He's 11-year-old now, so the clock is against him, but he still represents the biggest threat. I know Nicky mentioned there's a chance to put cheek pieces on him, which he will be better for. I think it's going to sharpen his jumping, which is going to help him. Obviously, Kenton wasn't ideal for him as a track, but he didn't score brilliantly after it. So you can probably you can ignore some of his defeats. He was defeated against Suriname and Ascot the same. So he's still capable of running to a high level. I think he's the nearest to Chacun Pour Soi, but I don't think he's a danger. I think Chacun Pour Soi, even money, is a great price on him. But Altior's next best. I thought value in a horse called Celius Emery if he goes here. He won a Nace last time. I actually tipped him up at 50-1 a few weeks ago before he ran a Nace. I thought he has a squeak. He has pace. He has potential. Because for me, Put the Kettle On isn't good enough. Politolog isn't good enough. Nube Negra, I don't think it's good enough. Fakir de Rees, I thought I'd go for the Ryanair. Likewise, Min. Scural was good in Newbury, but maybe not to this level. First Flow, the same. Celius Emery, I think, could be worth an each way play, but without Chacun Pour Soi. But Chacun Pour Soi he's rock solid.
But Barry's slowly decimating all the selections I have placed because you say I like Nuba Negra. I don't think he'll beat Chacun Pour Soi, but I think he could run into a place because he's a good jumper, touch wood, and he travels very well. And you know he could be called the winner a long way out at Kempton. Different story at Cheltenham in a race like Queen Mother Championships, but I thought he could sneak a place. What about you, Neil?
Well, Nubi Negra, in that race at Kempton, you suddenly looked and thought, it was like one of those marathon runners that kind of joins in halfway. And I thought, where the hell is this coming from? It's absolutely cruising. And Dan Skelton's horses are running really well. He had a 4-timer the other day and they're in flying form. I think that can run a race. I don't know whether it can win. I think from an each way point of view, this is not one of these anti-post filthy ones where there's going to be less than 8 runners. I think there'll be plenty of runners in this race, maybe 11, 12, 13 runners. So it's not quite so, rush to get your account closed as perhaps the Arkle was. But it is a good each way shape of a race. Chacun Pour Soi obviously deserves to be favourite, but I think bookmakers will look to take this one on much more than they do Monkfish on the day because it's a race that's got a few other runners behind it. And they can see that they've got a chance of a result. I thought there was a couple of interesting ones. I loved the way David Bass rode First Flow at Ascot. That was incredible to watch and really good fun and a brilliant ride. But I think that horse does want soft ground, so I don't think I'm going to be going anywhere near that. I quite like Put the Kettle On each way. I think people kind of knocked the Arkle last year. And it was possibly a better race than people were saying. It was definitely like the ground. I think that could at least place. So I'll have to back that each way. But I'm going to look for a slightly bigger price one, I think. And that's, I do really like Henry de Bromhead generally. I like all of his horses. But favourite in the race last year, 33-1 this year. Notebook. Twice beaten by Chacun Pour Soi this year, absolutely loves the ground. I could easily see it coming third, but you win more money on an each way bet at that kind of price than you would by backing the favourite at even money.
Fair enough. So Notebook, the each way selection for Neil in the Queen Mother Champion Chase. We've got 3 more to go through on this, the second day. St. Patrick's Day, and up next it's the cross country chase. So who would like to go first here? Neil, I know you're a big fan of the cross country chase, so why don't you start us off?
There is the sneaky herpes angle, isn't there here, really? I thought we'd probably get onto herpes at some stage during this call. Easy's Lands, it hacked up in this race a couple of years ago, absolutely cruised there, beat Tiger Roll. They've got this problem in France. They keep saying, David Cotin has said several times that it won't be a problem bringing the horse over. It's got to be a worry, hasn't it? Surely that must be a situation that's changing day by day. I can't think a week out that you could be totally dogmatic about saying everything's absolutely fine. So I think if you have an each way bet in there, I know it's disgusting, and Chief's probably thinking, why did we invite this guy along? But if you have an each way bet today, you're kind of giving yourself a free shot, aren't you, that your horse halves in price if Easy's Lands is a non-runner. It doesn't feel like the market's really factored that in very much. And I don't know, the situation in France sounds terrible. And, I would have thought it must be a bit of a worry. Even if Easy Slams does come, it hasn't had the same kind of season as it had last time. Didn't run very well, I thought, at over course and distance in November. And it definitely wants soft ground. And I don't think, the cross-country course, they don't water, do they? So if we don't get as much rain as people think, and they have to talk about watering at Cheltenham, they won't be able to water the cross-country course. It's always a bit drier on the cross-country course anyway. So I'm quite big against Easy's Land. I don't want to go anywhere near Tiger Roller. Sadly, I think the horse has gone at the game. So I'm going to go for the winner of the Midlands Grand National, the winner of the Welsh Grand National, the winner of the Virtual Grand National. And it's going to be, I didn't even get an increase in its mark for the Virtual. Potter's Corner for Christian Williams. Really likes a bit of fast ground. It's only tried the cross country once before in the race in November. And I'm not going to criticise the jockey because I'm sure he did a better job than I could have done. But if I was riding in a cross country race for the first time, I guess I would probably do what he did and sort of, not get involved in the business end of the race early on in order to sort of save my stamina and make sure I finished the course properly. And that's exactly what he did. And then he ran on strongly for a place. You got to think this time in the big one, is going to be given a bit more of a prominent role early. It won't be coming from so far behind. But I think either way, it makes it a brilliant each way bet because I just feel like it's going to be staying on strongly at the end. And I really like that, actually. I would say that's my nap of the day.
Potter's Corner, tremendous. Yeah. I have to say as well, I've never known that stamina has been a problem for you, so I don't know why you ride yourself like that. Barry, what about you? What about this Easy Land situation? And would you be worried at all by what's happening in France?
Well, you'd have to be. But he is on the book. He is the pick, and he's the one you'd want to be on. If you take everything out of the equation, if he turns up, if he's allowed run, if he's allowed travel, if he's healthy, all the ifs. But he is the best horse in the race, and he is the likely winner if all those ifs are right. For me, I thought maybe value in Lord de Mesnil. Winner at Haydock last time, up £5, rated 154, stays well. He ticks the boxes if you like, but I don't think it's a race that you'd be weighing in heavy on one unless you had a very strong opinion. So for me, he's one with a chance. I would agree with Neil on Potter's Corner. Same thing, proven at the trip, has the benefit of a run around here as well. So it's a specialist race if you like. They're two of the right types, but Easy Land to be hard to beat if he turns up healthy and well.
Chief, were you a cross country man when you were younger? Or now, maybe?
Believe it or not, I went to school in Cheltenham, and I went to prep school and public school in Cheltenham, and I came second in the school cross country at the age of 30. That was in my pre-20 stone days. But yes, I was a cross country man, and then many years later, actually, Sporty Index were the first ever sponsors of cross country race at Cheltenham, and were for many years until we got fed up of giving JP McManus too much prize money every year. But I did cross country in PE at school. There were 4 of us that chose to do cross country, and we would run to the snooker club, play snooker, and then they used to just let us knock off at the end of the day after the PE. They didn't actually check whether you came back. So yeah, it was good. Cross country, love it.
In contrast, Chief, what about the Grand Annual and the market for the Grand Annual? Because
quickly going back to that race, it could be quite a scary time for bookmakers if the first 2 favourites come in. The first 2 shorties, because it's the 3rd shorty of the day. Yeah. But we'll see what happens. But what tends to happen with these things at Cheltenham is someone falls at the last, and bookmakers all breathe a sigh of relief, and something else goes in, and one person shouting. But anyway, there won't be anyone shouting, sadly, there this year, apart from stable staff, I guess.
Indeed.
Anyway, on to the Grand Annual. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, the Grand Annual is the next race we'll preview. And I was going to ask you for a little stare in the market, primarily because I find it hard to believe. If somebody had said to me at the start of the season Sky Pirate is going to be at the top of the market for the Grand Annual. But he, in fairness to the horse, he's definitely turned a corner and looks far more genuine than perhaps I'd given him credit for. So I'll eat my words on him.
Yeah, there's sort of three or four horses vying for favouritism here. It's Embittered is the one that people have come for today, 6-1, and then On to Carts 7-1, 13-2. Sky Pirate 6s, third. We're 6s on Sky Pirate. The Shunter 15-2, 7-1. So I mean, it's, as we all know, it's as competitive as ever. This, and
well,
I don't know who's been holding back the best in this type of race.
Well, the Shunter's got about 33 entries over the 28 races, so I'm not entirely certain I can be sure what he's running. But Barry, what do you like for the Grand Annual?
I think it's a very tricky race this year because it's changed course. It's on the old course, which is more emphasis on speed. So it would steer me away from a novice, really, because you're going to have 20, 22 runners, and it's flat to the boards. It's going to be a real test of novices. A novice would do well in the Grand Annual, but it's a very, very different track. So I'd be a little bit wary of novices. They're going to have to be very good to cope with this race. Joseph is well represented with the two at the top that the Chief mentioned, Embittered and Tukas. He also has a way, but the CEO was a winner and Leopardstown last time. Sky Pirate is a horse who I wouldn't normally fancy in it, but he is just shown, he seems to have improved. And he wherever he's found it from at this stage of life, I'm not sure, but he has the experience. He has the form. I think he's probably the one I would side with in a tricky race, because it's a very different race. All the novices with potential you'd normally like, but I'd just be worried about them in a race like this. They've only had 3 and 4 and 5 runs over fences. I'd nearly go with Sky Pirate. I'd take a chance on him.
All right. Neil, what about you?
I actually got a question. It's probably a question for Barry, because he probably knows more about actual horses and their physiques and stuff like that, their physicalities, than you two boys do.
Yes.
I'm guessing anyway. This thing with the Shunter is going to win $100,000 bonus if it wins the race at Cheltenham, and as Rishi said, it's entered in virtually everything. Does it really make a big difference if they wait a couple of extra days because of the, bring it back so quickly from its last run? Does that make it much more likely to run in one of the races on Friday, just so that they get a couple more days, or is 2 days not really going to make that much difference?
No, it would make a big difference, and especially when he's travelled over to, he was in Scotland obviously last week, or on the borders. He's making 2 trips, which is hard. Now you can only assess the individual. Some horses will take it better than others. He's been to England before. He seems to have travelled a bit, so he probably does okay in that regard. But 2 runs, it's 11 days from the Grand Annual to his previous win in Kelso. 2 trips to England. He'll be better for 13 days. So if it was a close call, he'd be better waiting towards the end of the week.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, the Shunter looks really well handicapped, doesn't it? And I guess if it runs in this, it's got a great chance. But I sort of feel like it might not run in this. I was really interested originally when I first looked at this race about a week ago in Gordon's horse. I say Gordon's horse. I guess we still say that. Chosen Mate. It won the race. It absolutely bolted up in this race last year, off 147, and then it's running off £8 more this year. It was 4-1 last year, and it's like 20-1 now. I'm guessing that's because it's not going to run, is it? I don't know. I might have missed that. Maybe they've made a statement about it, but it doesn't look like it's going to run. I would have thought if it ran, it should be a lot shorter. I know it hasn't necessarily had a brilliant season, but I thought that was quite interesting. Definitely, and we've said already, Joseph O'Brien's horses haven't had a brilliant season, but they're starting to come back into form, and he's got a few in this. Us and Them is a slightly bigger price than the one that people seem to have latched onto, which is Embittered. And that was 3rd in the race last year off 148, and it's carrying £1 less this time, 147. I think that would be the one for me, Us and Them.
All right. I'm just going to give a shout to Tamrock Dumata. I know what Barry said about novices going in this race, but he had a wind up after his hurdling career back about a year ago. Since then, he's had the 3 runs over fences. He's won twice, won well twice. And the only time he's been beaten was by Shishkin at Kempton, where he actually travelled really nicely. And the better horse that Shishkin is got away from him. I'm slightly concerned of where he is in the handicap. But in terms of talent and promise, I thought he's an interesting horse. I am now worried about what Barry's saying about these novices going around this course, with the race now having moved to the Wednesday. One more race to look at indeed on the Wednesday, and it is the Champion Bumper. And Chief Willie Mullins' hand further strengthened by the addition of Sir Gerhard to his team.
He is indeed. So here, Sir Gerhard's second favourite, 2-1, very, very solid in the market. Favourite is Kilcreeks, 7-4 with Sporting Index odds. Third favourite, Third Stripe Life, 8-1, and then it's 16 Spa.
Right, who's going to win this, Neil?
It's weird, isn't it? Because Kilcreek was so impressive at the Dublin Racing Festival, just ridiculously impressive. You'd think it would be a lot shorter, though, really. And now, obviously, the stable have now got the front 2 in the betting due to recent events. And it looks like all the money's for Sir Gerhard. I don't know. I mean, the Bumper wouldn't normally be a race. I don't mind watching it, and I'm quite enjoy it, and I'll have a bet, I'm sure. But it wouldn't be one of my races to really get stuck in. I thought Grangey of Willie Mullins's, it ran in the Mares Bumper at the Dublin Racing Festival, and it came late. I thought that showed a bit of stamina and would make for a decent each way bet in this race. But I don't know whether it's not a race I'm going to get too carried away in.
Fair enough. Barry, I think even I could have ridden Kilcreek when it won last. Oh, it was so impressive. I mean, do you think that is the one to beat?
He was very impressive, obviously. But I don't know, it was a very strongly run race. I thought Patrick gave him a beautiful ride. He sat, he was patient, and he was the best horse on the day. But different conditions, I'm just not fully convinced. I was probably more impressed with Sir Gerhard, who beat the Gavin Cromwell horse, who was second to Kilcreek as well. He beat, let's be clear about it, in Navan. In a slower run race, he showed good pace in the straight and he pulled away. So Sir Gerhard may be of more interest. I like Three Stripes Life. He was very impressive in Navan on his only run. I've ridden him work and I like him. I think he's a good horse. But I thought maybe Value could be the horse that they all thought Patrick should have ridden in Leopardstown was Ramillies. Yeah, I think he's of interest. I thought maybe they rode him too far forward. But obviously his work at home is very good. He has pace. So he could be value each way. I think he's about 16-1 or thereabouts. So I'd be I'd be wary about Kilcross. I like Sir Gerhard. I like Three Stripe Life. But no, I go for value on Ramillies.
I like Sir Gerhard. I think he looks like a slightly hardier horse at the moment than maybe Kilcreek, because he just, I don't think he'll mind a battle.